Hello, and welcome to The Leap. We are really glad you are here and want to thank you for joining us today. This is your podcast to guide you on how you too can make the leap from working for someone else to being in business for yourself full time. Before we dive in, remember you can find the audio podcast version of this episode and others on Apple Music, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Now let's begin. Here's your host and fellow leaper, Tim May.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Leap. This is Tim May. I got a special guest in the building, Lauren Sweeney.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm really excited to hear your story. One reason is because, listeners, you got to check this out. Her father is one of my business mentors. So if he's cool with me, then you're already cool with me. Lauren, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Let's start off with that.
Yeah. Well, like you said, my name is Lauren Sweeney. I'm the founder and CEO of a Richmond-based creative marketing company called Dotted Line. We service a national roster of clients. We have about 50 clients across a variety of sectors, financial services, health and wellness, consumer products, energy, consulting, so kind of runs the gamut. And at Dotted Line, we believe that the world is full of data points for what you believe and how you do business. And so what we do is we use brand and marketing strategy, creative, media, communications, and marketing analytics to help companies connect better with their consumers.
So wait a minute. You just said a whole lot in 30 seconds. That is, wow. Did you go to school for that? Like walk me through. Let's slow down for a minute. That is powerful. So did you go to school for that? Or walk me through kind of from, did you go to college? Where did you go to college?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up here in Richmond, Virginia, went to a small liberal arts school in Virginia.
Okay.
And I did not go to school for marketing or communications. I actually majored in economics and business and had a passion for art. So I minored in studio art and art history. Interestingly, I thought I wanted to be an architect for a long time and went to architecture graduate school to realize that was not really my passion long-term and what I wanted to do. So what I am doing now is very different than what it looked like when I was in my early 20s, but it's been a good, exciting journey for sure.
So you graduate from college. Did you go straight to working or did you go straight to grad school? Walk me through that path.
Yeah. So when I graduated from undergrad, like I said, I had a real passion and interest for wanting to be an architect. And so I had worked at a couple architecture firms based here in Richmond and had been accepted and attended a graduate school for architecture. It was in my time there pretty early on that I just had the realization that this was not really the right long-term career path for me. So what happened was I took a leave of absence and I moved home because what else do you do? You don't have anything else to do. And started to just apply for really any job in Richmond that was business related.
Wow.
So what happened was in a short period of time, got hired at a local Fortune 100 company and spent 6 years there doing a variety of different roles. So that was really my kind of first taste of what a professional kind of business type of job is. And so,
with some real money,
real money, salary. Worked in a number of different roles. I worked in HR, worked in operations, and the latter part worked in doing internal communications.
Okay. So you're working that job and, walk me through kind of that moment where you're just like, it's time for something different. Walk me through that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think the story for Dotted Line really started years before I actually started the company. As you know, and you pointed out, I come from a family of small business owners, and my grandfather owned an oil and gas company in a very small rural town in Southwest Virginia. And so I sort of always grew up with this mentality of being around like small business owners and understanding kind of the power that small business can have on a family and a community. And so my grandfather always believed that it was sort of his responsibility with a small business to use his assets and his leadership and his abilities to have a positive impact in other people's life. So that was something that was an integral part of my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was working in my corporate job, I had an idea for a side business that I started with a good friend of mine, where we basically designed and manufactured these paper products that we sold online. I didn't realize it was a business. It was just a hobby and something that we had a lot of passion for. But we designed them, we manufactured them, we marketed them, we, sold them and grew this side small hobby business. And I think that was really the first time that I could get a taste of like what could be, that I could have an idea and create something and be able to build it on my own. So that was really the second trigger for me to think seriously about a path in entrepreneurship and what that could look like.
So what was then the moment where you're like, it's time? Like, I know it's time. I need to move on. I know I'm my own boss. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so I had been, obviously I had a little bit of a taste of entrepreneurship with this side business that I had started while I was still working my day job. And we came to the realization after a period of time that it was really just a passion for us. It wasn't something that we wanted to take full time, but I started to seriously think about what that could look like for myself and my own path forward. And so what happened was I actually started to do a couple of different things to get ready. I didn't really know what that idea was or what I wanted to do. I had a couple of different business ideas. And so I started to do some business modeling. I started to think about financial projections. I started to just get out and network more in the community to get plugged into the startup world. I didn't know anything about that and was very different in the setting I'd come from in a corporate job.
Sure.
And so I also started to save. And so I think saving is a big piece and maybe one we can come back to on getting ready to take the leap.
Yes.
But what happened was I had a couple of different business ideas. And as I was talking with small business owners, I saw that there was this need for more flexible marketing communication support to help small businesses grow. And so I started to do a little bit of consulting on the side and did that for about 6, 7, 8 months while I worked my day job to grow a client base, to have some revenue coming in the door and have enough time to save and kind of do all the things you need to do before you take the leap. As I'm sure you're aware of.
Absolutely. So, some people they're listening to this and they're like, okay, I already have one full-time job. How am I going to take this leap? Like, how do I start off small to the point to where I can do something outside or with my full-time job? How can I manage both to even get it to a point to where I can then take the leap? So walk them through that. How were you able to navigate doing both at the same time?
Yeah, so I think I had a passion for wanting to explore something beyond my current role. And so I was willing to commit a little bit of time right on nights and weekends to do that.
There we go.
You get to a point when you have, for us, we're in a service-based business. So when you have a couple of clients, it became a little bit more challenging to manage.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, yes, I am staying up past midnight every night and I'm working every weekend.
It's very real.
And you get to a crossroad with your decision-making of, should I continue my day job or should I start to consider what this entrepreneurial path could look like a little bit more seriously? And that's what I started to do with my journey. I think the financial aspect is a big piece. So I've always been a really big believer in not taking out any debt and funding the business yourself, bootstrapping it as best you can. And so that's a major component. So during that time, I had saved some money that I felt like I could live off of.
Good.
So for ideally 2 years, I think it ended up being about a year and a half of what I could live off of. But I also did everything I could to minimize my expenses. So I moved home. I did things like that, the things that are not glamorous.
And let me ask you, how old, if you don't mind, how old were you? Because this is going to help some people. How old were you when you moved back home?
I was 26 when I started Dotted Line. So it was not a fun experience. It wasn't for long, but it just helped minimize my expenses until I could have a better understanding of what the future looked like. So,
Lauren, one thing is people who want to own their own business, a lot of times their approach is, how can I how can I conform my business, my opportunity around my current lifestyle? When really I find that the people who have success in launching their business full time and being their own boss, they actually conform their lifestyle around what's necessary to be successful in their business. And, I would have friends that would buy the new car. They bought the new home. And they would wonder why I was driving the Honda Accord or whatever the car I was driving at the time. And it was because the car was paid off.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the $400 or $500 a month or whatever. I had the roommate. So my rent was only $600 a month. And so I had that cushion to put away. Speak a little bit more on the importance and what gave you the foresight to start putting money away.
I realized that whether I started my own business or I would go work at a startup, I needed to have some financial cushion to be able to do that. I, had been living independently. I was single at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized I didn't have a lot of responsibility. So I could live at a pretty minimal level as it came to like my expenses. And I think the other thing to think about is it's short term, right? So you're taking a short term hit. It might be a couple years,
Good point.
but it's not the next 10 years. And so
That's
I think
right.
the point is you're sacrificing now so that you're not sacrificing later.
That's right.
And I'll share that my husband started his own business, which I was
Okay.
sharing with you
Yep.
before we started.
Yep.
He started that while we were married. And so we went through a similar exercise as well when he started his business of saving. We really want to have a year's worth of savings in the bank because starting a business takes much more time
Yes.
and money and effort than you ever think it's going to
Yep.
out of the gate. And so it's an important piece. It's a sacrifice, but like I said, it's a short-term sacrifice.
What's one thing that your company, Dotted Line, does for clients? Just maybe a success story, just something that you enjoy doing for a company and helping them.
Yeah. So what we do when we start with any of our clients is really work to understand their business and what their brand is. So like the core of who they are as an organization and what their perception of their company is in the marketplace, and then how we can help them map out a marketing strategy to grow. And so some of that might be communications, some of it might be social media, some of it might be paid advertising. And then what we do is manage all the components that need to come together to market their company. And we will manage the effectiveness of their efforts or the analytics component of it.
So your value proposition to X company, you would say is what? What would you say is saving them tons of time by offloading that for them? Is that what you would say your value proposition is?
So our value proposition is helping them grow their market share and their brand. It's very much focused on growing their company and their sales. So that's what we help them do. Our clients are growing middle market companies who have a variety of different marketing, brand, advertising needs. And so we help put together the right strategy and team based on where they are and the maturity of like their company.
So you make the leap. What is day one? You're your own boss full time. What is describe to our audience? What does day one look like? How was that?
Day one, I know so I started the business in 2014. So it's been about 6 years. I would say day one, I was hungry and aggressive and was just willing to do honestly whatever it took to make it work. And so it involved a lot of grit and perseverance and just willing to meet with a lot of people and put myself out there in order to try and meet potential new clients. So a lot of it was, doing a excellent job for our existing clients so they would then refer us. And then trying to just get the word out there. You have to create some type of like buzz and brand recognition for your services. So that was a large part of what I was focused on. And still,
day one,
and still are. It doesn't change. But it can be tough on day one. It can definitely be a very intimidating, overwhelming, and honestly like fearful experience.
Which I was going to ask you, was there ever a time where you second guessed yourself?
So I think, at every stage of growth, I go through that phase. I mean, when I launched,
very real.
it's very real. And when I launched Dotted Line, I was terrified. I think that's natural. And at every point, it can feel overwhelming. And I think the key and what I wanted to share is to just not let that fear paralyze you. I see that so often with other small business owners and entrepreneurs. And for me, it took years of shifting my mindset and reframing how I view failure, right? It's not like if failure is going to happen, it's like when. And it's going to happen every single day.
Yes.
And you just have to be able to mentally persevere and enter in order to grow and get better.
Yeah.
I love, there's a famous entrepreneur named Sarah Blakely, who's the CEO of Spanx. And so she talks about how growing up, her dad would always ask her, what's one thing you failed at today? So that way that you're like triggered mentally to start to rethink how you view failure and your fear of it. And so we started to do that a little bit with our kids at home because I think that can be such a powerful thing. And it's not that fear is bad. It's just that you have to be courageous, I think, to move through that.
I love that. So I opened up by saying your father is one of my business mentors. What's something that you've taken from your childhood that he taught you that you're putting forth in your business today? What's something that you're doing?
Yeah, first off, I would agree. My dad's been a huge mentor and supporter of me and my business.
Shout out to Dr. Coxon. He's an amazing dentist, amazing man.
If you need a dentist in Richmond, Virginia, go see him. I think one of the things that he has talked about that we've tried to continue to carry with our family is just the power of, I think, small business and the impact you can have on the people around you, both your employees, I think your family, your friends, and the resources that you have at your disposal and making sure you're doing so in a purposeful way, right? Like at the end of the day, what are we really here to be doing?
That's right.
And so for us, like our faith drives a big piece of that. And we believe our purpose is to better other people's lives for the betterment of community. And we try to really live that out and demonstrate that with our team.
Tell me about your family. You mentioned you're married. Any children? Walk me through that.
Yep. So I'm married to a fellow entrepreneur. My husband has his own company called Spinnaker Consulting Group. And then we have 2 children. I have I call him a tiring teenage stepson. He just graduated from high school. And then we have a 1-year-old daughter. So we have 2 kids at different ends of the spectrum. So life is fun and full in our household right now.
I'm telling you, if you can handle being a parent, I think you can run a business.
Yeah.
It's life. It's just it's crazy.
You learn to be flexible.
Yes.
And you just got to sometimes just roll with the punches.
See the best in people.
Exactly.
Grace. What's one of your biggest wins?
Yeah, I think for me, it's honestly, I just get a lot of joy out of seeing something now 6 years later that I started and didn't really have a lot of clarity about and wasn't quite sure like what it was going to be like. And now seeing it in a more mature state with a team and a stable roster of clients, it's pretty exciting to see that this is possible. And I think even more so as we've been able to hire really smart, motivated, like talented people to help kind of lift the mission beyond just like what I could do has been really powerful to see. And honestly, it's what keeps me excited every day about coming to work. Because entrepreneurship can be a very lonely, lonely place to be. And so I love that. That's probably one of the things when I see all that our team is able to accomplish every day, it gets me excited, keeps me motivated.
It's really motivated, and you start something and it's just what's in your own head, what's in your own brain. And then you start assimilating a team and just the team dynamics start coming into play. It's, you're like, the possibilities literally are endless on what you can do. What is one of the toughest things that you've had to, work through as far as being your own boss?
I think one of the toughest thing, and it's an ever evolving challenge, is just time management, right? There's only so many hours in the day, and time is the one asset that you just can't get more of. And so I've had to constantly, at every growth period of the company, be thinking about what are the things that like only I am qualified and I can be doing, and learning to then delegate other tasks and responsibilities. And it's tough. But it's necessary in order to continue to grow and thrive in the business.
What is something that you are able to do because you're your own boss that you were not able to do when you were working for somebody else?
I think for me, I was reflecting on this question when you shared it with me before, was I feel most passionate about being able to chart my own path, right? And being able to make my own decisions. And that's a big responsibility. So I don't want to minimize that. I have people that are depending on me, and not just my family, but I have staff and then their families. And so that's a big responsibility, but there's also freedom in that we can be in charge of our own destiny. And I think, that's exciting.
It's the risk, but there's the reward.
There is
the reward of it. And it's interesting. I do these episodes, and rarely does anyone ever talk about money. And, people will listen in and people think about business. And there's so many people think people do it just for the money.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't mentioned that at all. It's really a passion to helping people and helping people's businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I want our listeners to know that I think that's really what separates people who have long-term success, is that when you could think, why am I doing it? The dollar bill, you make money and bills are paid and all that, but having a bigger purpose, and you shared a little bit about how you're a person of faith. Will you kind of go more into how that guides you?
Yeah, I will. And I'll share, and I've talked about this a little bit with some other interviews I've done for a long time. I had a very ambitious mindset, and I had a specific revenue figure in mind that I wanted to hit as a small business owner. And for a long time, I was so laser focused on hitting that number that it was hard for me to really understand or look at any other goals. And so, the interesting thing was we hit that number, and it was almost this moment of like, okay, so what now? Like, I'm not any more fulfilled. My team isn't any more motivated. We're not really achieving any more of our mission. And it really was a huge learning opportunity for me to think about, what are we really here for every day? And what is our purpose as a team? And how do we create this vision in which the entire team feels bought in and excited about? That's not just monetary. And there's nothing wrong with making money. I don't want to say that, because if you're not making money, then you're not in a business. But it's not the heartbeat of the organization. You have to have it. It's like oxygen to breathe, but it's not why you live. You don't live to breathe. Right. So
I love that analogy.
It's important, but it's not at the end of the day like why we do what we do. I also think if an entrepreneur is looking to just make a lot of money, there are plenty of people that do that. But I also think there's other ways that may be a little bit easier than the path of entrepreneurship to just make a lot of money.
That's exactly right.
So that would not be a number one that I would recommend for why you should have your own business.
That's a really good point. For me, Lauren, just humble beginnings, and just wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it comes to money, just being able to support another small business. And, I try to, in something, each podcast to, like this shirt, right? This is a guy, Nicholas Briley.
Mm-hmm.
He's the owner of Kingdom Style, and he's a fashion stylist. And he measures me and makes sure that my shirt fits nice and well. I'll make sure I put the description in the that you had a description in the description box when you watch this or wherever you find it. But I just love being able to support a small business in some type of way, because we all start small.
Mm-hmm.
We all start small, and there's a mutual respect no matter what. Like, I didn't even have to know your whole story ahead of time to know that you've been in the trenches, right? That you've had those long nights. You watched the sun come up, you know, you're like, I've got payroll coming up, you know, and it's just, I love the passion in what someone becomes through entrepreneurship. Let me ask you this, and we'll kind of wrap this up, is I know it's not about numbers, but where do you see yourself personally in 2 years?
Yeah. So I think for us, it's a couple of things, right? One is I want to see us continue to just live more into our mission every day. So we talk about our mission at Dotted Line is to be a committed catalytic champion for our clients every day.
Wow.
So it's living into that. It's doing work that we're proud of. It's growing our client base and continuing to grow our team and our capabilities. So that's a piece of it. I think personally, my husband and I have a couple of different like passion projects and things that we would love to put a little bit more like structure around as to how we could be using our businesses to better the community. And so that's something that I would love for us to spend some time thinking about it. You know, we're always thinking within Dotted Line of what is our next product or service? What could we be doing to differentiate ourselves in the market? And so I think that's always sort of a given and something that we constantly talk about.
Well, Lauren, I enjoyed this time. And I know I'm going to see you sometimes over at your father's house. I know we're going to run into each other. You know, if you own a business out there, this is someone that you want to do business with. I could feel your spirit, and it's amazing. You know, people do business with people they trust, and there's just a spirit of trust there. This is my first time ever meeting you.
Yeah, well,
and I got to tell you, if you're looking for someone, a creative agency, a marketing, branding, I got to tell you, I would do business with you. There's no question about it. So thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you, Tim. And I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's important to me to know, to tell people that if I can do it, like you can do it. And so I don't want people to hear the story and feel discouraged. I want them to feel encouraged and motivated and think, wow, if she's got this, I can go do it too. Because I think, to your point, small business is the backbone of our economy in the U.S.
Right.
And it's a wonderful career path. I'm a huge fan and proponent of starting your own business. So I hope people feel encouraged in that way.
Well, thank you. That was Lauren Sweeney.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, whether it's you're driving on your way to work, maybe you're in the bed about to go to sleep, we thank you so much for taking time with us. This is Tim May with the Leap Podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you are notified when a new episode is posted. Rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends who you know would also love to take the leap. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you are leaving with some great things that can help you on your pathway to full-time business ownership. Now go out there and put one foot in front of the other. Until next time.